On February 18th, 2013, I was a 9-year-old boy who just wanted to swim. I amputated my leg the next day to make that dream come true. But the reality is, I was never even supposed to see my 9th birthday. My name is Jack O'Neill, and as Ryan mentioned, I'm a graduate of the University of Wyoming, Division I college swimmer, 3-time Pan Am silver medalist, US Paralympian, and I'm here today to share my story of overcoming adversity and improbable odds in the pursuit of excellence. And I want to thank you all for having me here today. I feel very honored to be standing in front of such a talented group of people and purpose-driven group of people. And thank you, Ryan, for that intro. That was one of the better ones I've gotten. I appreciate that. And now my life is unique, and at times appears insurmountable. But my hope today is that you connect to me in my journey. And I challenge everyone here today to see yourself within my story, because we all face adversity. And I hope you leave here today not only moved by my story, but feeling inspired what may be possible in your own life and careers. And so, like I said, my story is one of improbability and adversity from day one. I was born with significant birth defects in my spine, leg, hips, heart, and kidney. I had a lot going on. And doctors told my parents that these birth defects were incompatible with longevity in life. They encouraged my parents to take me home and enjoy what time they had with me. And I had my first surgery when I was only 6 weeks old, and I continued to have several more surgeries that year. I shocked everyone by responding well to surgeries and reaching developmental milestones we didn't even think were possible. And when I reached my first birthday, the outlook of my lifespan and the quality of my life changed drastically. And when I was 6 years old, I underwent an intense procedure to lengthen one of my legs. And this was because it wasn't growing properly. So what they did is both my bones were surgically broken, and a metal halo called a fixator was attached to the bones. It's this thing right here. That's the fixator. And so each day my parents would turn the rods of the fixator, which would just separate the bones and force new bones to regrow. So essentially we rebroke the bones in my leg every single day for 58 days. I had reactions to pain medicine and infections that were resistant to antibiotics. And my families and doctors really struggled to keep 6-year-old me comfortable. Now, the only activity that was deemed safe for me was physical therapy and a chlorinated swimming pool. And my doctor recommended water therapy for me because it made the fixator weightless and it cleaned out the wounds around the fixator pins, which is super gross, and I'm really sorry to ruin rec center pools for you all. But they were pivotal in my life, so we'll ignore that. And when I was in that pool, I was able to relax. I was able to forget about the pain. I was able to feel like a kid, not a disabled kid, but I felt the freedom of being able-bodied. Here's little me behind the blocks. In the summer, after having my fixator removed, I joined my summer swim team. And summer swimming is very casual. It's all about having fun outside, learning the basics of swimming, and I loved it. Twizzler relays and hot tub time. 7-year-old me was sold. I was in. I was all in. Unfortunately, as much as I loved it, I was terrible at it. I was so bad at it that I got disqualified in every single event that summer, which is insane considering at 7 years old, you're only swimming a length every race, which is not a lot of time to get disqualified in. So I was getting it done efficiently. But I finished that season elated at the idea of swimming another season, just completely oblivious to the fact that I had been disqualified every single time. Shout out to my mom and dad. However, my coach did not feel that same excitement. After the season, he met with my parents and he said that I would not be invited back next season because, quote, there are special programs for kids like this. He was implying that a kid with a disability did not deserve the right to compete against and to practice with able-bodied kids. Now, lucky for me, my parents were smarter than that coach. And you could say this is where my career as a competitive athlete began. My parents hired a new coach to give me swim lessons all winter. And I came back the next season, and I won every single event I competed in against able-bodied kids. Now, it was summer swimming, so it wasn't like that intense, but it makes for a good story. And so a few years passed, and I grew like a weed, and seemingly right after the fixator, we were back in the doctor's office discussing what we should do next. And the doctors explained to my parents that we would have to continue with the fixator until my right leg stopped growing, or we could stunt the growth in my right leg. And thank God we did not stunt the growth in my right leg, because I don't think I would be with my wonderful girlfriend right now if I were as tall as my 8-year-old self. Still not that tall. I'm looking for a little KD year, maybe grow an inch, but I think that might be out of the cards for me. But anyways, after this appointment, my parents and I left feeling hopeless. The last fixator was such a terrible experience. How could we possibly go through with it again? The doctor's plans, they involved multiple surgeries because not only was the length discrepancy an issue, but so was my immobile knee and hip. And so at this time, Oscar Pistorius was making international news. And he was making news for his racing, not for his crimes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google his name afterwards. I'm sure you'll find out pretty quickly. But Oscar, he was making national news for running in the Olympics, not the Paralympics. And he did it on 2 prosthetic feet. It was an incredible story of triumph and the progress that prosthetics had made. And I was seeing this as a disabled kid who was unable to run. I would do this funny little like hop, skip, run. Sometimes I still break it out when I'm trying to catch the bus in LA, but when I was younger, I knew that I wanted to run one day. And prosthetics made that possible. So, as any 9-year-old would do, I asked my parents about having my leg amputated. And we traveled the country looking for a surgeon who would do an elective amputation on a 9-year-old boy. Most doctors thought my leg was salvageable and told my parents to rethink my dreams of becoming an athlete. One of them even had the audacity to suggest that I join the marching band. And no disrespect to the marching band, I'm just not musically talented at all. I'll go for a little karaoke, but that's about it. Eventually, my parents found a surgeon who agreed to perform the surgery. And on February 19th, 2013, I had my leg amputated, exactly 1 month before my 10th birthday. And recovering from the amputation was a brutal road and far more challenging than we had anticipated it would be. It was a moment of reflection for us, like, had we made the wrong decision? You can't go back after an amputation. It's cut and dry, no pun intended. Like, was my future on crutches? Maybe the doctors were right and we had just made an irreversible mistake against medical guidance. And so a few months after my amputation, I was still struggling with prosthetics to the point that I would cry about putting it on and taking it off. It was unbearable pain, and later we learned that I was rushed into the process. But despite my slow progress in recovery, I was invited to a triathlon camp for kids with disabilities. And the thought of doing triathlon was laughable at the time. I couldn't walk through the grocery store, much less run after swimming and biking. But I went to the camp anyway. And at that camp, I met Melissa Stockwell, who is one of America's most celebrated wounded veterans and disabled athletes. And Melissa saw me swimming, and she took time to speak encouragement into me, specifically telling me that she knew that I had what it took to grow up and be a Paralympian. She was one of the best disabled athletes in the world, and it took all of 5 minutes of her telling me that I had what it took to change the trajectory of my life. I didn't know how to believe in myself, so I chose to immerse myself in Melissa's belief in me.